If you've been wondering where you can get some SX appeal, you've come to the right person. I'll tell you. See our Datsun dealer. He's got the brand new 200 SX.
If you're looking for some more SX in your life, you're likely to be met with such phrases as, "I know what I got," "no lowballs," or "not even sure if I want to sell." One quick local search on Marketplace will reveal that these cars may not be impossible to find, they're just impossible to buy. Are these cars such enthusiast icons that a questionable one with only 3 pixelated pictures and a mismatched tailgate is worth $18,000? Look, if you're too ashamed to put the price you want in the actual price field on Marketplace, that says something. So we're going to do an SX deep dive today, and as usual, we're going to start at the beginning. Because the 240 SX that Marketplace bros seem to think is their retire at 25 investment fund is actually generation number 4 in the North American import of the S chassis Silvia, but no one ever talks about the other ones. The first Datsun 200 SX came to North America way back in 1977, so let's start there and work our way up to 1998 as I take you through all 5 American versions of the Silvia, so everybody watching this video can know what they got.
To give you the drive of your life.
The first 200 SX. Well, it certainly is unique looking. It just looks like a Datsun from the front end. And on the back, well, I guess they're going for kind of a fastback look, but the lack of any real quarter windows leave it looking just really bloated, I think, and I can't imagine this thing has very good vision. There is a back seat, but the steeply sloped roofline and the short wheelbase means the rear seats are pretty much for show only. We might have to give these taillights some inspirational credit though. It seems they were just ahead of their time. Long, narrow, horizontal lines seem to be the norm for taillights these days. What's kind of funny about the rear end of this vehicle is it gives the illusion of being so big, but the trunk is actually really small, with much of it taken up by the gas tank. While I don't find anything particularly SX-y from the outside, I do think the interior is quite a bit better, especially the dash. It actually has a full complement of analog gauges and a clock too, and that's all standard. An AM/FM radio, electric rear window defogger, center console armrest, cigarette lighter, and full carpeting is all standard too. Optional equipment includes a sport accent package, which includes a body side tape stripe and these mag-type wheel covers. Air conditioning and a 3-speed auto transmission are optional as well. The standard transmission is a 5-speed, but look at the shift pattern. Well, this is a sports car after all. Unfortunately, this gearbox would probably not be ideal for any sort of hard driving, as Road and Track reported that the linkage was so poor that finding the correct gear, particularly when downshifting, was no easy task. These cars actually have a buzzer that activates when you put it in reverse, perhaps to warn you when you no doubt shift it there inadvertently because you're used to driving a vehicle with an 8-shift pattern, or a vehicle with shift linkage that at least somewhat directs you to your next logical gear. Under the hood is the L20B. It's rated at 97 horsepower and 102 pound-feet of torque. 0 to 60 as tested by Road and Track was 13.3 seconds. Look, it was the 70s. You can thank the EPA for that. Unfortunately, the S10 isn't really known for good handling either, as it uses a leaf spring setup for the rear suspension. Brakes are front discs, rear drums. In 1978, Datsun adds a remote control for the standard left side mirror, plus the option to add a right side mirror as a dealer-installed option. This first generation only had a 3-year run here in North America, and I don't think there were any major changes for 79, although I have to admit, finding information on this generation is not easy. It doesn't seem like they were very popular. Most buyers in the market for a car like this at the time were choosing the Celica over this thing, and yeah, I don't blame them. You can find online some official promo photos for a 200 SXE, which appears to be some kind of an upper model with a body kit, spoiler, and side louvers, but this version never made it to production. Overall, this generation is, well, let's call it a first attempt at making a cost-reduced personal sports car. The original MSRP on this thing was only around $23,000 adjusted for inflation, and I like the concept of making sort of an entry-level Z car, something sporty that young people could actually afford. Wait, are these people 20 or 50? It's hard to tell in the 70s, but clearly Nissan still had a long way to go before the SX would become the icon it is known as today.
Just think what will happen to you when you're driving it. So take it from Dan, your Datsun man. Get some SX appeal at your nearby Datsun dealer.
This car absolutely screams 1980s with its square eyes, right angles, and technological gimmicks. The new design is a steep departure from the rather bulbous proportions of the previous generation, and the 200SX now comes in two body styles, hatchback and coupe. The coupe is actually a hardtop. There are also now two trim levels, the base level deluxe and the upper SL trim. Now if you think the outside is a cool time capsule from the early 80s, well, let me show you the inside, because that is where this 200SX really shines. I mean, look at this interior! Look at this dash! Once again, we have a John Davis approved gauge cluster, but in addition to that, there are indicator lights for almost everything. I'm not kidding. Headlights, taillights, stoplights, rear defrost. On the other side, sensor, brake, door, fasten belts. But we're not done. To the right of that, if you've got the base trim, there'll be an analog clock. But on SL trims, you instead will get a digital clock and this computerized digital multi-warning system. This system monitors your fuel, your washer fluid, your battery, even your coolant, all with fun little digital pictures. Alright, I'm sold. Keep your $18,000 240SXs, I know what I want. Ah, damn. I guess that was expected. Most of these probably rusted away 39 years ago. Also, I didn't notice this till editing, and it's nothing to do with cars, but who in their right mind would buy and eat pho from some stranger on Marketplace? What the? They've done a nice job of backlighting every little icon and switch on this dash, and they even brag about it. I think Nissan had a pretty good idea of who they were targeting with this model.
I'll take it.
An electric driver's side mirror is standard, but a passenger side can be added as an option, which of course comes with its own set of controls. You can never have too many controls.
I'll take it.
SL models come with dual power mirrors as standard, and on those ones they actually move both mirror switches to the door panel so that they will be with the power windows and door lock switches, which are added features on the SL trim. Other features added by the SL includes a rear wiper on the hatchback, trunk and glove box lights, and overhead interior lights that softly fade away when the door is closed, so you're not left fumbling in the dark. The map light pivots to throw a beam where you want it in the dark of night, and don't forget, the optional sky roof offers wide open pleasure. The SL driver's seat has adjustable lumbar and thigh support, and check out these epic door courtesy lights which are integrated into the armrest.
I'll take it.
SL coupe models come with white wall tires, an absolute must on a car like this, and cruise control is standard on automatic transmission SL models. Air conditioning is optional across all models. Power steering is available only on SL models. It comes with the optional 3-speed automatic, or you can add it as its own option to manual models. What's under the hood? Meet the Nissan NAPS. NAPS Z, I guess is how you're supposed to say it. NAPS stands for Nissan Anti-Pollution System, and then the engine designation was the Z20E. The early 80s was a time of relatively high fuel prices and strangling emissions requirements, and this was pushing automakers to come up with new technologies to balance fuel economy and emissions targets with performance and hopefully at least some level of reliability. Basically, this engine uses the same block from the L20B, but it's fuel injected, and a new cylinder head gives a new combustion chamber shape that is designed to allow the combustion process to take less time and make sure the fuel is burned completely before the exhaust valve opens. Further to this, in 1980, California models used 2 plugs per cylinder for an even more complete burn to meet their even stringier emissions requirements. By 1981, the twin-plug engine was expanded to all states and Canada too. Just look at that octopus of plug wires. These engines were rated at 98 horsepower and 112 pound-feet of torque. Brakes are now discs on all 4 corners, and the rear leaf springs have been replaced by coils. According to a 1980 Car and Driver article I read, I guess it was their Christmas issue, handling performance was only modestly improved over the previous generation, and they seemed rather less than impressed with the braking performance, calling the pedal pressure required to come to an eventual stop, quote, ludicrous. So obviously there's still some room for improvement, but they did praise the 2-liter engine as being smooth and overall said the car drives down the road better than a 280. They did comment that the shift linkage was better than last year, and it's thankfully now using the normal H pattern, which makes a lot more sense for a street car. When compared against the Mustang Cobra and the Prelude, we can see that the quarter-mile acceleration bests the Cobra but falls just barely short of the Prelude. It does beat the Prelude in fuel economy though, but like I already mentioned, leave yourself plenty of stopping distance. The 200SX gets updated for 1982. There's a new front fascia with more of a flush grille and a new bumper. The corner lights are a little larger and more rounded. There are also these weird vents on the hood now, but they don't really look functional. I gotta be honest, I have no idea what these are for, unless they just thought they looked cool. On the back, both body styles get updated taillights, and I have to say the hatchback version is starting to look like a Japanese DeLorean.
Don't stop now, Marty. We've got to get back to the future and save your kids.
It ain't me, Doc. The damn thing broke down again.
Damn. I knew I should have built my time machine out of a Datsun.
Datsun saves.
The only visual interior difference I can notice, other than different fabrics, is the leather-wrapped shift boot has been replaced by an accordion-style boot. Now, if you're driving one of these and you hear voices, don't worry. For 1982, SL models get Nissan Datsun's vocalized warning system, which means the 200SX can now talk to you, just like the Maxima does.
Lights are on. Key is in the ignition.
If you hear voices in a deluxe model though, well, then you're just crazy. SL models now come standard with power steering regardless of transmission. There's also a new engine for 1982. It's still a Naps Z engine with twin plugs, but it's now a 2.2 liter and horsepower output is rated at 102. I actually could not find the torque rating for this one. For 1983, the final model year of this generation, SL models get an optional leather package. Now I know these ones aren't perfect from a performance perspective, but damn if they're not cool. Man, I want one of these now. These early 80s gimmicks, they really work on me.
I'll take it.
From its Panther lean styling to its advanced electronic circuitry, this superbly engineered machine creates excitement for those who drive it, and envy for those who don't. 2.2 liter overhead cam engine with electronic fuel injection generates 102 horsepower of genuine power. Go and you go fast. Stop and you stop. Eventually, with power-assisted disc brakes. From the moment you switch on the electronic ignition of your SL, a sophisticated warning system takes over as your co-pilot, monitoring 6 vital functions and vocalizing its data. Data. Datsun. We are driven. For 1984, the 200SX officially wears a Nissan badge. It does retain a Datsun label under the left side taillight in an attempt to educate consumers of the branding change. Now, since we're looking at the back end, wow, these taillights have to be some of the most 80s taillights I've ever seen. But I think they look cool. Definitely more interesting than just one straight in line. The reverse lights are actually still down on the bumper like where they were on the previous generation. Now these taillights are specific to the hatch. The coupe has taillights which are a little more tame looking, but they still look good. The front end sports another one of my favorite mid-80s trends, pop-up headlights. Now we're starting to look SX-y. Again, this 200SX is quite a departure from the last generation, which I feel was going for more of a formal look. This one is all sports car. As I just mentioned, the 200SX again comes in coupe or hatchback body styles, and there are 2 main trims. The base deluxe and the upper trim is now badged XE, but the hatchback has one more trim above that, Turbo. The turbo engine is a 1.8 liter and it uses a water-cooled Garrett turbocharger without an intercooler. Power output is 120 horsepower and 134 pound-feet of torque. Unique to the turbo model is an independent rear suspension and 4-wheel disc brakes. Alright, this is starting to feel like an SX. Unfortunately for 1984, all the lesser models still use the 4-bar link rear suspension and have gone back to drum brakes on the rear, which is a little lame considering rear disc brakes were standard last year. Not that they worked that well, but still, it's the principle of it. Non-turbo models are powered by another 2-liter, the CA20E. These CA engines are the replacement for the Z series family. They are still Nissan anti-pollution engines, a technology which they are now calling NAPS X. In the SX, this 2-liter puts out 102 horsepower and 117 pound-feet of torque, so very similar to last year's numbers. Both of these new 200SX power plants are still twin-plug engines, so you can still pretend to yourself that you drive a V8. Hey Shannon, why don't you ditch these losers and ride with me? I just got new spark plugs. All 8 of them. Shut it, Datsun. We know you use twin plugs.
What? No, who says?
Turbo models come exclusively with a 5-speed manual. The other models can be optioned with a 4-speed auto if you wish.
I think a 5-speed stick is a kick.
power steering is now standard on all models. Turbo models also get larger 15-inch alloy wheels, a boost gauge, a different steering wheel, a spoiler, an alarm system that actually disables the starter motor, a strange fabric pattern that gives you a headache to look at, and a non-functional hood scoop. It's unfortunate because I do actually think the hood scoop looks kinda cool, but I really don't like scoops or vents or intakes that aren't functional. If I know it's pointless, it ruins it for me. Either make it functional in some way or leave it off. This is almost as poser as painting your drum brakes red. Turbo model fabric aside, the overall look of the interior is pretty cool, though very 80s, and there are a few strange things. The optional digital gauge cluster must have been a very popular option because a lot of the ones I see seem to have it. For a digital cluster, it looks good, and I can definitely appreciate how people would have thought this was super cool back in the 80s. Myself, I prefer the analog cluster, but either way, you still get full instrumentation. The indicator light placement is kind of strange. Some are in the cluster, some are integrated into the little pod around the cluster, and some are just down the street. I've never understood why Nissan was doing this in the 80s. They did it in the Maxima too. A digital clock is standard, and it kind of lives in its own world, stealing some prime real estate on the dashboard for itself. Digital trip computers were kind of a new gimmick in the 80s, and they were often in their own little standalone units. They were optional on XE and above trims, and if you have one, it lives down here below the stereo. I'd rather get the graphic EQ option here instead. Climate controls are simple sliders, AC remains optional on all models, and I love the look of the silver-faced head units Nissan was using in this era. Over the deluxe model, XE adds things like door-mounted don't crash into me lights, footwell lighting, lumbar support, power windows, power mirrors, and cruise control. Plus, XE and above models still talk to you.
Lights are on.
A rear wiper is standard on all hatchback trims, and a sunroof is optional on XE and turbo models. All non-turbo models come standard with 14-inch styled steelies, but XE trims can upgrade to 14-inch alloys as an option. Seats fold down 60/40 on all the hatch models, making them quite practical for cargo hauling. The last thing I want to point out about this interior is the manual shifter. What is this?
I think a 5-speed stick is a kick.
Come alive, come and drive. Major motion from Nissan.
At your Datsun dealer.
They made a few notable changes for 1985. First of all, the hood scoop is gone from turbo models. I'm imagining Nissan got a lot of flack for it being fake. If only they had gotten rid of this awful seat pattern too. Turbo models also lose their unique steering wheel. For 1985, the standard wheel and tire size is 15-inch and standard alloys are extended to the XE hatch. An optional digital equipment package now combines the digital cluster with power locks and rain-sensing intermittent wipers, as well as a sunroof, alloy wheels, graphic equalizer, cassette deck, and keyless entry in the form of a coated touchpad like on the Maxima. For some reason though, you don't get the power locks and by extension the keyless entry on turbo models with this package. They also decided that base model peasants would no longer get a low washer fluid light, but here's some more good changes. The independent rear suspension has been expanded to all models, as has rear disc brakes, so overall they fixed a lot of the shortcomings with the 84 model. The next big change is 1987 when the 200SX gets its cosmetic update. The front end is a little smoother with horizontal lines replacing the previous honeycomb pattern on the grille. The lenses below the pop-ups which served as running lights have been removed. Well, I guess they're still there, but they're just these little tiny corner lights now, and the reverse lights have been allowed back into the club, no longer banished to the bumper. Inside, there's been a slight update to the analog gauges and the digital cluster has been discontinued. They have moved the indicator lights in the landing strip closer to the driver so they're not way out in no man's land anymore, which makes a little bit more sense. The manual shifter gets a proper boot and the fabric on the top trim is, well, better. Trims have been sliced down to 3, the base deluxe models are gone and you're left with the XE hatch and coupe and the new top trim which is now called the SE. This top trim has been renamed because in the US it no longer uses a turbo engine, but it's now equipped with the 3-liter V6 from the 300ZX. Now I believe the V6 was exclusive to the US market. In Canada they kept selling the 1.8-liter turbo instead. The V6 engine was rated at 160 horsepower and 174 pound-feet of torque. The 4-cylinder models keep using the 2-liter with revised power ratings of 99 horsepower and torque at 113 pound-feet. All models still use the 5-speed manual as standard or the optional 4-speed auto, and that auto option now extends to the SE trim as well. SE models get a unique 3-spoke steering wheel, alloy wheels, power mirrors, a spoiler, the alarm, and a 6-speaker stereo with cassette deck. XE models, which are now the base level, remember, no longer get power windows and mirrors as standard, though they can be added as options. Same with the footwell and don't rip my door off lights. Most of these items have been combined into a power equipment option package. There is also a sports convenience package which adds cruise control and the sunroof to the SE. All models still have fully independent suspension, which has now been upgraded to accommodate the extra weight of the V6. While the 0 to 60 time of the V6 is technically slightly slower than the previous turbo model, MotorWeek pointed out in their review that there is more usable low-end torque, which combined with improved handling, more than made up for it in their opinion. I think these would be pretty cool. I'd like to drive one. For the final 1988 model, the V6 engine is updated with 5 extra horsepower. Whether with the turbo, a V6, or even the base 2-liter, I think these things are a pretty cool 80s time capsule. Alright, I'm sold. Keep your $18,000 240, bro. I know what I want. Oh. Well, I guess that was expected. Apparently Nissan was actually quite worried that these would not be profitable in North America, so for the final 2 model years, they only made 5,000 of each trim level. Now I'm not sure if that was 5,000 of each per year or 5,000 for both 87 and 88 model years, but either way, that's a very limited run.
Come alive, turbo, come and try turbo. Major motion from Nissan.
At your Datsun dealer.
It's 1989 and we're finally here. The first 240 SX. Oh, what an icon these have become. Now I should mention that technically this generation is not quite a direct export of the Silvia. The body style that we got with the pop-up headlights actually comes from the JDM 180 SX, the Silvia's sister model. Silvia and 180 SX models came with either a 1.8 liter or 2 liter engine, and there were turbo and non-turbo versions, the most desirable one being the SR20 turbo, but over here we got the KA24E, a single overhead cam 12 valve 2.4 liter engine shared with a few other models including the Stanza, the Pathfinder, and the Hardbody. This is why people will sometimes tease North American 240 owners who haven't engine swapped them for driving around with a truck engine. Nice car. What do you got in there? The truck engine? Yeah, so? You're supposed to be offended. You guys are both sitting here with front wheel drive and you think I should be embarrassed? I mean, of course it would be nice to have gotten the turbo engine here, but we know North America never gets the best stuff. And by the way, the reason we didn't get a turbo engine here is turbo engines resulted in higher insurance premiums, and Nissan was afraid that it would hurt their sales, and they were probably right. Truck engine or not, this is actually a pretty good engine. Of course more power would be nice, but it's still plenty of fun to throw around. And I'm actually speaking from some experience here. Back in the day I had a friend who owned one. Now it was a 92, so it had the slightly more powerful dual overhead cam engine, but it was a super fun car. I rode in it many times, even drove it a few times. We drifted it in the snow, so I understand the hype of these cars. I like them too. I'd love to own one, but, well... In the 240, this engine makes 140 horsepower and 152 pound-feet of torque. The standard transmission is the 5-speed manual, optional is the 4-speed auto. Once again, they come in 2 body styles, the XE Coupe or the SE Hatch, which they call a fastback. The fastback, like before, is positioned as the sportier model, and the Coupe the more luxury-oriented one. I do really like the look of the back of the Coupe. From a purely aesthetic standpoint, I think I like it a little better, but the Hatch is of course more practical. Both cars are still plenty SXy though. 4-wheel disc brakes are standard, and ABS is an option on hatch models. There's a new independent multi-link rear suspension which really improves the handling, and along with how good the weight balance of this car is part of what makes it so fun to drive. On the inside, well, I mostly like it, but I've never liked these seats. The one solid color fabric, I mean look, I'm glad I'm not seeing strange optical illusions anymore, but these just look like someone bought the cheapest basic seat covers they could at a Walmart and slipped them on. The dash layout is simple but effective and it looks nice, and most controls are driver-centric. The standard gauge cluster is okay, but I have to criticize it for being the first SX to not feature full instrumentation.
The gauges are large and easy to read. but they would be a bit sparse for a real sports car.
This time, for the indicator lights, they did the old Volkswagen thing and used little LEDs with the icons above them. Now in the coupe model, there's an optional heads-up display, which will give you this alternate cluster with a digital speedo, and then the heads-up display will project your speed onto the windshield as well. Another feature taken from the Maxima, and it's kinda cool I guess, but I've never really been a fan of heads-up displays. On the coupe, there is a power convenience package, which includes the HUD, cruise control, power mirrors, power windows and door locks, a premium audio system, footwell lights, and map lights. Don't fold my door sideways lights are no longer in budget. On the hatch, this package gives you all the same stuff, plus a rear wiper. You can also add an SE Sport package to the hatch, which gives you alloy wheels, a more sport-tuned suspension, a front air dam extension, a spoiler, a leather-wrapped shift knob, and steering wheel. In 1990, they extend the Sport package option to the coupe as well. A sunroof is optional to both models. It's electric on the coupe and a manual pop-up removable one on the hatch. By the way, if you want to do the Sleepy Eye mod to your 240SX, all you have to do is pop this headlight wash button out to get at the harness it's connected to behind it and cut the brown wire. Then every time you press the button, it will raise the headlights in increments, so you can set them to where you want them and make them look sleepy or whatever when the headlights are off. A silly mod, maybe, but it's harmless, and we were 19, we thought it was cool. At least we weren't doing whatever the hell this is to it. 1991 is the refresh year. There's a new, more rounded front end, which I think looks a lot better. In Canada, daytime running lights were mandated in 1991, so on Canadian models, these grills are populated with DRLs. On the interior, the only real cosmetic difference is a steering wheel with the new Nissan logo. Under the hood, though, as I mentioned earlier, the 240SX now gets a 16-valve dual overhead cam version of the KA24, which gets you 15 more horsepower and 8 more pound-feet of torque. There are also some more trim levels now. Coupes come in base or SE, and hatchbacks come in base, SE, or a new LE trim. Over the base models, the SE trim adds all the power options, alloy wheels, spoiler, cruise control, slightly better seats, the leather wrap on the steering wheel and shift knob, and on the coupe it adds the heads-up display. The LE hatch adds leather interior, lumbar support to the driver's seat, and standard AC. ABS remains an option to SE and LE trims. Nissan has also added a handling package to the SE Fastback. This includes a sport-tuned suspension, ABS, a viscous limited slip, and Nissan's super high-cast four-wheel steering system. I think it's a pretty rare option package though. In late 1992, Nissan introduces a convertible version of the 240SX. Now I'm not really into convertibles because I live in the province of Rain, but they did a nice job with it. Unfortunately though, the convertible is auto only, so roll the clip. Of course, you could always buy one, say you're going to manual swap it, then let it sit for 2 years and throw it up on Marketplace as an unfinished project. My loss, your gain. If you're claiming to take a loss, show me what you paid for it and what you've put into it. I know, you lost the receipts. And I'm sure the non-working convertible top is just a fuse and nothing to do with why you're abandoning the project. The LE trim is dropped for $93, but you can still get the leather upholstery as a package on SE coupes and fastbacks. Production of the S13 ended in spring of '94 when the S14 was released, which we'll of course talk about next. I totally get the SX appeal about these things. They are really fun, good cars that are generally well built, although there are some rust issues, but really, what golden era Japanese car doesn't suffer from that? For a while, they got really affordable in the used market, maybe too affordable because a lot of kids bought them and destroyed them. And now with the used car market being the way it is, people think even garbage ones are worth collector's prices. I don't know, do people actually buy crappy marketplace ones at prices like this? Let me know in the comments. I mean, I guess if people are, then, well, then I'm just an out of touch old man yelling at these damn kids to get their slammed SXs off my marketplace. It's 1995. Meet the vanilla ice cream of 240SXs. Now don't get me wrong, I like vanilla ice cream. It's just not as exciting as some of the other flavors. Pop-up headlights were a fading trend by the mid-90s, and what we have instead is a front fascia that doesn't look bad, but easily fades away in traffic without enticing a second glance. On the back, we have one straight line. No, I'm kidding. In my opinion, the straight line taillights actually work here because of the shape of the back end. I actually think it looks good. The back of these cars look much better than the front. For this generation, the hatchback has been dropped, and 240SXs are now coupes only. The back seats aren't very usable, but they never have been, and this is really a 2+2 sports car. At least the rear seats fold down. The target market for this car was obviously not people with families. Actually, according to Nissan's press release, this car was primarily targeted at single women. I was surprised surprised to read that Nissan targeted this demographic because 61% of S13 buyers were already single women. The interior is pretty different from last year. It seems a little more comfort-oriented, the seats are much better, and dual airbags are now standard. It's a fine interior, nothing flashy, but there's not much to complain about either. It's still the same engine as last year, power output is unchanged, but it has had some internal upgrades to minimize vibration and improve throttle response. 0 to 60 time was 7.3 seconds, which is pretty respectable for a car in this class in the 90s. The 5-speed is still the standard transmission, but the 4-speed auto is becoming a more popular option with this generation. There are 2 trim levels, base and SE. Over the base, the SE adds a rear stabilizer bar, stiffer suspension, a spoiler, a power antenna, upgraded cloth, power door locks and cruise control. Power windows were now standard. The SE also upgrades the cassette deck to a CD player, gives you keyless entry with an alarm, 16-inch wheels, fog lights, and white face gauges. Nissan was really into white face gauges in the mid-90s. At least they didn't cheap out here and only do half the gauges in white like on the B14 Sentra and 200SX.
But the gauge cluster, while efficient, is still too sparse for us.
By the way, if you're wondering about the 90s reboot of the 200SX nameplate, I won't be talking about that one here because it's not an S chassis car, it's a 2-door Sentra that they changed the name of for marketing reasons. If you want to hear me talk about that model, I covered it in my Sentra video, just watch the B14 section. A power sunroof is optioned to both models, and there's also an ABS limited slip option package. You can still get leather as an option package as well, but Nissan does their usual 90s option package gatekeeping with that one. So on the base you can only get it if you also buy alloy wheels in the sunroof, and on the SE you have to buy the ABS LSD option before you're granted the privilege to spend further money on leather. Map lights are included with the leather package now, and you don't get them without it. Now it's easy to tease this car, criticize it for underutilizing the platform and playing it too safe, and yearn for Japan's SR20 while we have to make do with the truck engine. One thing to point out though, by the mid-90s, this 240SX was the only sports car in its class still rocking rear-wheel drive, so it still deserves some credit. For 1996, they restyled the grille, removing the 2 slats. They also got rid of the power antenna on the SE, giving it the same fixed one as the base. That's just pure mid-90s Nissan cost-cutting right there. Styling gets a little more interesting in 1997. There's a much more aggressive looking front end, and I think it looks much better. The new headlights have lost their oval shape and have gained projector housings. On the back they added these horizontal lines and a more defined black surround around the colored lenses, and I think it helps improve the look. The interior is mostly unchanged, but there is a new LE grade trim above the SE, which adds the leather, the sunroof, this upgraded double din audio system, and map lights. The keyless entry and alarm system are now part of this trim as well. At the same time, Nissan introduced a new popular option package for the base, which just makes you pay for a bunch of stuff that was standard in 95 and 96. Again, typical mid to late 90s Nissan stuff. 1998 would be the final year for the 240SX. By that time, sales numbers had dropped significantly, as the 2-door sports coupe segment in general was fading away, and the era of SUVs was just around the corner. Here are some US production numbers I found floating around on the internet on various forums. I'm not prepared to state these as facts since I have no idea where these figures came from, but they look believable, and if they're accurate, by 1998 there were only 2,178 240SXs sold in America. What a shame. Of course, the Silvia did go on for one more generation, and I will have to do a JDM video at some point to talk about the S15 because those are pretty cool. For now, let me know in the comments which American S chassis generation you find the most SXy, and make sure you're subscribed to this channel because it's one of one and I know what I got.